Greetings from Okeechobee, Florida.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
As I've mentioned a couple of times this week, my wife and I are on the road, and we are currently in the great state of Florida, which is actually our home state. We are in town to take care of some business matters that actually regard shortwave radio, some ministry matters, and a few personal things that need to be taken care of as well on what will be one of a couple of trips to Florida. This past year, we spent a little bit more time than normal in Georgia, and it's made it easier for us in many ways to get some of the things done that need to be done, including doing this radio program. When I went to bed last night, I was trying to think, what can I talk about today that would be of interest to you and also provide you maybe with some encouragement? The news of late is not always that good. There's a lot of tension among a lot of people. Some people not as much, but people that are truly paying attention to the real news and the real things going on in our world today, well, they're noticing things have changed. I had a fascinating email the other day from a good friend and listener to this program. And this individual, I'm not going to say where, but worked for many, many years in a large metropolitan area and has since retired and lives out in the suburbs, so to speak, and often visits a rural part of the state in which they live. And he pointed out to me, he comes out of an engineering background as I do, that there's a different feel today to him in this world. And he said, Bob, would you classify what I'm feeling as demonic? And my reply was absolutely yes. There's no doubt. I feel it too. I felt this very strange, for lack of a better word, I have felt this very strange presence that almost feels cold and evil and makes you very uncomfortable. Now, people that are spiritually aware will know exactly of what I'm talking about, this strange feeling in the air. And it seems when you get into many of the major cities, it intensifies. I can remember in my much younger years when I was pursuing a career in radio with the idea of working my way up to, quote, the major markets. I had this goal of being one of those top 40 radio announcers about, 50 years ago when I was in my teens. I thought it'd be great to work for a station like a WABC in New York, maybe WCFL in Chicago. I can think of several others, WGAR in Cleveland. That was my goal in life, was to be a famous, well-known, well-paid top 40 radio announcer. That was my starting goal. And I've been to cities like New York. I've been to Philadelphia. I've been to Cleveland. I've been to Chicago. I've been to Atlanta. I've been to Dallas. I've been to Los Angeles. I've been all over in my life. But it's only in recent years, and it's not that I think I'm any more sensitive. Actually, I don't think I'm the same. I have the same sensitivities to certain things today that I did 10 and 15 and 20 years ago. But I feel something different in many of our American cities today that I truly never felt before in my life. There is something going on. There is something happening, and it feels like a oppressive spirit. Call it a demonic spirit. That's the only words that come to mind. I know of a church building, also in another state. Many years ago, that church was a very, shall we say, true Bible-believing church. Let's just put it that way. They were one of the mainline denominations that 30, 40, maybe 60 years ago were rock solid when it came to things like Scripture and teaching and doctrine. But like many churches in the United States today, they have fallen away from the faith. They have stopped teaching what the Bible has to say on certain topics. And we use the term being woke. That's kind of the new term of our time. And as they've gradually walked away from tenets of the faith, there have been radical changes in those churches where they used to preach about the true resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now it's kind of an optional thought. You don't have to believe in a resurrection. You don't have to believe in a virgin birth. You don't even have to believe that God created the heavens and the earth and the universe and all that we see. All of that has gone to the wayside. And I walked into this church building, and I literally sat down and felt uncomfortable. I felt something was wrong here. I didn't feel as that song that came out many, many years ago, there's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. Well, there was no sweet, sweet spirit in that place. It felt cold. It didn't feel peaceful. To my Christian witness, it felt terrifying. You knew that something was wrong in this place, and I couldn't wait to get out. The building is being used by a couple of different church bodies now. Two of them would be considered woke, as we use the term. They celebrate certain sins. They make a big deal out of it. They try to think that they're all inclusive and everything is fine. And God's word is, well, it could be negotiated and voted upon, and God will be fine with your vote. And I was there just to visit with a group, the one little group left that was relatively solid. And I just realized I can't come back to this place. It feels totally demonic. It's like an evil presence has come across that building. And in certain parts of the United States, you feel it at airports. You feel it in certain buildings and venues. And I never felt that kind of a thing except in the rarest of moments in my entire life. The first time I ever felt something even like that was when I was on a Caribbean island about maybe almost 30 years ago. And something didn't feel right among the people and the culture that I was with for a short period of time. There was something wrong. And I understand now what it probably was. It was demonic spirits. I don't care what anybody says. They are out there. They've been around. It's nothing new. It's just we have kept them at bay in the United States for generations. Not that this country was truly a Christian nation, but there were enough Christians acting like the salt and light of this world to keep it at bay. Today, those numbers are no longer the same. Today, we can't make that same statement about this being a Christian nation. We can't say any of that anymore. We recognize for the first time in our nation's history that less than half of the population of this country is even involved in any kind of a church or synagogue or mosque or any other kind of house of worship. Less than half. It's 47% now. And of that 47% in recent years, many of those so-called Christian churches are no longer Christian churches. They're Christian in name only. They have abandoned the faith once delivered by the saints. They are preaching another gospel, which St. Paul says is not the gospel. It's an anathema. It should be shunned. It should be rejected. We shouldn't pay it any mind or heed. That's the world we're living in today. And this world, it frightens me. It truly frightens me, the world that we have today. My friend is right. Whenever he visits the big city that he worked in for decades, something is not right. Something feels wrong. He even used the term, there's a certain look in the eyes of people today you didn't see in my growing up years. I used to go to New York City as a child. I don't remember the hollowness of the eyes, the way people look at you. I don't remember the anger that people have. They call it politics, but I really think it's deeper than just politics. I think some of our politics have been thoroughly co-opted by satanic forces, but that's just my opinion. But what does the Bible have to say about all this? Well, the Bible has a lot to say. And I want to share just a few thoughts with you today about that. In an email that I got not long ago from, I think, the same friend, and I'd seen this before, and it talks about the term gaslighting. How many people have heard that? Have you heard the term gaslighting? A lot of people go, well, what does that really mean? They're having a hard time comprehending, what does the term gaslighting actually mean? Gaslighting goes back to a play that came out in the 1930s, and it's called Gaslight. And this play was about a husband and a wife. The husband was trying to get her wife committed to a mental institution rather than trying to get a divorce or whatever, as I recall. I don't remember the whole thing, but in essence, what was happening was he was trying to make her think she was going crazy, that her perceptions were no longer accurate about the world around her. And what he was doing was they had gas lights in their city apartment, which a lot of places did at the turn of the 20th century. And what he would do is when she was out of a room, he would get up and turn down the lighting just a little bit, not much, just a little bit. And she'd come back into a room and he'd be reading the newspaper and she's going, did this room get darker? And he would go, of course not, it's fine. Well, what are you talking about? Well, the room wasn't this dark when I left. What happened? And he would go, well, nothing's happened. And he kept doing that to her until she started doubting her own abilities to understand or make reasonable assumptions about anything. She questioned her own sanity. And so the term gaslighting has been applied to a lot of what is happening today in our mainstream media. Our mainstream media in the United States today is totally bankrupt. It is totally of no value. It is totally of no honest value. It is now nothing more than a major propaganda machine being used against you and I. It's that simple. Put on the news from ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. Read the New York Times. Read the Washington Post or any other major metropolitan newspaper that we have out there today. And they are trying to tell you that what you see is not real. They are trying to tell you that you are incorrect in your perception of what you see in this world. And there's something wrong with you. There's no crisis at the border in the United States. That's just what you think because you're some kind of a xenophobic or a racist or something along that line. That's what they'll tell you. They will deny science while saying that they're following the science. And we've talked about this on this program numerous times, the Dr. Fauci's of this world. Every week there's a new Dr. Fauci. He has a different message every time he gets up to speak at a press conference. What he said last week is not what he said the week before, not what he said a month before or last year. It is a constantly changing message, and if you challenge it, you're told you're denying the science. You're told you don't know what you're talking about. The social media outlets like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube have thoroughly bought into this demonic realm of gaslighting. Their phony fact checkers at Facebook make me sick. If you try to share anything that is real and true, you are immediately shut down. I have people that I've known for years that are suddenly getting 72-hour, 1 week, or 30-day suspensions from Facebook. Or some of my friends, frankly, don't care. They wear it like a badge of honor. When they come back, they're just as truthful as they were before they got banned the first time. Which will bring us to another topic before the program is over. People in this world are being gaslighted. While here in Okeechobee and in the other place that we live up in Georgia, there are places you can go where nobody is obsessed about the pandemic. They don't care about case numbers. They are questioning if the actual numbers we were given over the past year are even accurate. I've said it a dozen times in the past month. Can this virus cause trouble, problem, or even death for certain people? Absolutely, like many other diseases can. Was it the raging pandemic that would kill millions of Americans in a few months? No, it never was. But we still act like it is. Dr. Fauci kept telling us last year, once again, how you're being gaslighted. Well, we can't come out of these draconian lockdowns. We can't go back to work. We can't go back to school. You cannot go back to church until we have a vaccine, and a vaccine will cure everything. And the world as we know it will come back to normal once again. Well, put aside your opinion and even mine on these vaccines for just a moment. There is one now. So what does Dr. Fauci do after getting his 2 injections of whichever vaccine that he opted to take? Assuming he really took it. Sometimes I wonder if he really did. Honestly. What does he do? He wears 2 face masks. He's virtue signaling and gaslighting you. He said a vaccine will be the solution to this. Okay, now they develop one. Well, no, that doesn't work that way. You can still get it. You can still spread it. So why in the world, if we allegedly have this vaccine, which I have no intention of taking, if we have this great vaccine that's supposed to save us and make life come back to normal, then why do we still have to wear a face mask? Why do we still have to do all the things we've been doing for over 13 and a half months to stop this virus? Then we hear about, mutant strains, killer this, UK that, South African this. And we find out, these vaccines may not protect you from the variants, the mutations. My biggest fear is so much money is involved in this that a lot of shortcuts were taken and the lives of many people were put in peril. We don't know what these so-called vaccines are going to do in the long run because there's been no long-term testing. But Bob, Facebook says that these vaccines are safe and effective. Okay, how do they know that? How do they know they're safe and effective? Well, the doctors, the science tells us. But the science still says wear a face mask. The science is saying a lot of things that absolutely make no sense. Do you see where I'm trying to come from in what I'm telling you today? Am I getting through to you that you're being gaslighted? We had an honest and fair election. No, there was no cheating. All those unfolded ballots in a box, that's normal procedure. We see with our own 2 eyes. We hear with our own 2 ears. If you are one of the few people that are still in possession of common sense, you can connect all the dots. And what do we have? Gaslighting. You're being told what you see is not what you're seeing. It's not a blue sky, it's a green sky or a purple sky. When does the gaslighting end? Politics now counts on your ignorance more than it ever has in my lifetime. When I look at the average, let's say, 17 or 18-year-old today, and I'm not trying to throw off generationally here. I always promised myself 50 years ago I was not going to be that guy. I was not going to be that old codger. I was not going to be that person. But over time, I'm becoming one now. I know a lot of young people, some because they've had parents that have instilled discipline, that have caused them to learn how to think and reason for themselves. You do have some that can actually think. But too many of them today simply can't. They are believing the lies because the lies fit the agenda that they're trying to achieve. They are willfully allowing themselves to be totally blinded. On that, there is no doubt. I can remember I was 17 when I left home. I had just finished high school. I had worked all summer. I was going to go on to an electronics school in Ohio and got a job when I was out there as well. Yeah, I worked and I went to school and I paid my own way. I'm not bragging. That's just what people did. There was nothing spectacular about that kind of a life back when I came up. I know some people that graduated high school and went to work in some very fine companies like Kodak or Xerox or Bausch & Lomb and did well for themselves over the years. We had, at least when I came along, and I didn't pay too much attention. I probably should have paid more attention than I have. When I came along, we were given a reasonably good education even in the public schools. I went primarily kindergarten through 8th grade in a Lutheran school and then high school in a public school in a small town in upstate New York. And we had I had some really wonderful teachers now that I look back. There were some that I didn't like then, but I really admire now because I now understand what they were trying to do to instill knowledge and the ability to reason and think something out for yourself. By the time I moved away in August of 1972, and realizing I now have to pay some bills, put gas in the car, and cook for myself. This is pre-microwave, obviously. You can't go out and eat out every night because you can't afford it. You have to begin to take care of your own needs. Yeah, you got to buy soap and shampoo and other things of that nature. You got to take care of those needs. You need to make sure you wind your alarm clock up because you got to get up to go to school, and then you got to go to work, and then you got to go to bed. You can't stay up all night. You take on responsibility. I can remember I didn't make a whole lot of money because I didn't work a whole lot of hours because I was a student. And the pastor of our church in upstate New York had taken a call to a church in North Olmsted. I'm trying to remember what side of Cleveland, Ohio it's on. I keep thinking it's the west side. I may be wrong. It's been so many years. And I figured out on a roadmap how to get there. And I would try to save up enough money every week to make sure I had money for gas in the car and something for the offering plate. And then I would drive an hour to visit with my old pastor that I had during my years in high school. Yeah, I went to church. I can remember they had passed the amendment to allow 18-year-olds the right to vote. And it made logical sense to me at the time. If you're old enough to go in the military and die for your country, you should be old enough to vote. I can remember trying to figure out who am I going to vote for in my first election. It was a big deal to me. I wanted to make sure that I had my voter ID card, that I was properly registered, that I had, the correct driver's license now in Ohio and everything that I needed to vote or to function in Ohio. And I can remember registering for the draft as well on the same day. I took care of getting my license changed. I took care of registering with the draft. And then I was within the time frame, because I would be 18 before the election, I registered to vote. And I spent a lot of time reading newspapers and trying to just learn about the candidates of that time. In 1972, in case you don't remember, it was Richard Nixon running for re-election. And he was running against Eugene McGovern, the Democrat. And some people were saying you ought to consider McGovern because he's promising to give every American $1,000 to stimulate what was at that time a stagnant economy. Believe me, somebody making $60 a week before taxes and Social Security, $1,000 is a lot of money, man. That's like a half a year's income. And $1,000 would have been something that would have been a major help for me at that time. But I remember something that my father, my uncle, and my grandparents had told me over the years. The old saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every time somebody gives you something for nothing, they want something in return, though they may not say it. Outside of parents or grandparents, of course, but I'm saying, when a total stranger wants to give you something for nothing to make your life easier, can you really trust it? I mean, seriously, can you really trust it? What is it going to cost you? How much is that $1,000 going to put you in debt to that government or whoever gave it to you? What is the price you're willing to pay for that $1,000? Now, think about the amount of inflation. That's like being told you're going to get, $6,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 today in today's money, probably almost 10 grand. That buys a lot of votes, doesn't it? But my grandparents explained something to me that it took a while to fully comprehend it. That every time the government borrows money, the value of the money you have in your pocket goes down. If you don't believe it, look at the prices you're paying today for a lot of things compared to just several months ago. As the government keeps borrowing more money, new money comes into the system as purely debt. The value of the remaining money goes down. It doesn't stay constant. You can see it reflected in the price of silver and gold today on the market. It has remained relatively stable in comparison to our currency. And our fiat paper currency, what is it really worth? The good faith and credit of the United States. Well, the United States is a debtor. We are in debt, up to our eyeballs. It's a debt that you and I cannot pay. It's a debt that I don't think will ever be paid until the entire economy collapses. Maybe that's what they're wanting to do with the Great Reset. The world as we know it is going to change. And if you go to cities like Washington, D.C., New York, Los Angeles, even Atlanta, Georgia, not all of it, but a good part of it, you're feeling that demonic oppression closing in and making an impact. The power levers of our economy and our government are now in the control of the statists and the Satanists for the most part. They don't care if they have to lie, cheat, or steal to get what they want. And you're saying, well, why would these politicians want to do things that are harmful to you and I? How could that possibly be? What good interest of it is to them to actually be doers of evil? I will tell you in just a few minutes.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
Messiah's profession. Shalom Aleichem. This is the nice Jewish boy, Jonathan Kahn, your Jewish connection, bringing you the riches of your Jewish roots in Jesus. Now get your pen out as fast as you can so you don't miss out on receiving a special free gift you're going to get and love in a moment. And did you know that it's actually a Jewish tradition that Messiah would be a carpenter? That's right. Well, there's only one candidate, the carpenter of Nazareth. Now, you ever wonder, why a carpenter? He could have come as a shepherd or a scholar or a professional prophet or a prince or a general. Why a carpenter? Well, a carpenter specializes in putting things together. A carpenter picks up pieces of wood and from it, he makes something beautiful. And so our lives need a carpenter. Our lives need a carpenter's hand and a carpenter's touch. If you're a human, you're living on this planet, chances are you've seen things break in your life. Broken dreams, broken relationships, broken promises, broken hearts. Chances are your life has some broken pieces, even some missing pieces. Chances are your life isn't all together, and you've been wanting to get it together. That's why he's a carpenter. His specialty is taking the brokenness in your life, all the broken things, and piecing them together one by one till your life turns out to be something beautiful. Your part is to let him have the pieces. It's your pieces. You have to give it to him. Bring it all to him. The brokenness, the broken pieces, the missing pieces, the sorrows and losses and frustrations and hurts and wounds and broken dreams and broken relationships and broken promises and broken hearts, all of it, and put it in Messiah's hands. Stop struggling with your life and entrust it already into his hands, because his hands are the hands of a carpenter, the carpenter of life. And when you let him be the carpenter of your life, that's when your life will come together and become something beautiful. Want more? Ask for the fallen sukkah of David. Now, feeling like your walk with God could use a real spiritual boost? We got the answer. Free subscription to Sapphire's warning. Use as directed. It can revolutionize your walk. And the incredible, the mystery of the temple doors, all free. You'll love it. How do you get all this? Easy. Just remember Jesus' Hebrew name, Yeshua, and dial it. Just dial 1-800-YESHUA-1. You'll be so blessed, but call now. 1-800-YESHUA-1. Now I invite you to minister with me in two of the most exciting ministries, to being the word of life around the earth by shortwave radio, to every tribe and tongue, and to Israel, the Jewish people who gave you the gospel. Just call now. 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's YESHUA-1. Or you can write me direct. I'd love to hear from you. It's the Nice Jewish Boy, Box 1111 in Lodi, Lodi, New Jersey, 07644. That's the Nice Jewish Boy, Box 1111, Lodi, Lodi, New Jersey, and the zip 07644. Well, till next time, this is Jonathan Kahn saying Shalom Aleichem. Peace be to you, my friend, in Messiah, HaDerech, the way.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
And welcome back to part 2 of Truth to Ponder for this Friday and weekend edition for many of our listeners. Glad you're with us. There's a lot I want to share in this segment with you. I would like to thank so many of you that support this radio program faithfully each month. Without your support, this program would not be aired on international shortwave. And I'm really working to find a way to expand the number of hours this program can be heard, and maybe even at a station. Hard to say at this point in time, but we're working on it diligently. And I think by the summertime, maybe July, we'll see an expansion of those hours. Hopefully, maybe even a little bit sooner. We're trying to get another airing later at night, especially heading out toward the west. And that is important. We're doing fairly good coverage right now on most of the East Coast and part of the Midwestern United States. I'm trying to see if we can even improve that just a little bit. Maybe let me know the kind of hours you can listen and what frequencies you've been able to hear would help me in trying to choose the times that I need to be broadcasting the program and where. Right now, we're on WRMI, and basically Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, you can hear us at 10 o'clock Eastern on 5950 kilohertz. You can also hear us at 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday at 5950 kilohertz, and at 6 p.m. at 9395 kilohertz. And I think a couple of nights a week, Monday and Tuesday on 5850. I think just 2 nights a week right now. That's pretty much our time on WRMI, and there may be a weekend airing as well. I'm not sure of what time that is currently. We're also on KVOH at 9975 kilohertz every weeknight, Monday through Friday, and I think Saturday night as well, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 Pacific on 9975 kilohertz. So let me know if you can hear those frequencies if you're a shortwave listener. Had a listener write me a couple of notes, and I've been a little bit slow in replying because we are traveling. And I will tell you, we're using different equipment on the road than I'm used to using. So if there are any little mistakes, kind of bear with me as I get used to this setup. We just got this gear last week, and I still have a lot of getting used to the gear that I have. It seems to be working okay. I think I can get the sound quality even a little bit better, so bear with me as we're on the road doing this program. We'll be doing it for several days into next week as well on the road. And so I appreciate your, bearing with me as we try to get a program out each day, try to get it out the same day or the day in advance, whatever works for the schedule. So this is our first program on the road being recorded in Okeechobee, Florida. And I want to thank my good friend and the guy I worked with at WRMI has a small house that I have access to use. My wife is at our other house with the daughter and other family members, and I'm over here doing some work, and this gave me a little quiet time to get the radio program done for this weekend. And so I thank my buddy for allowing me the use of this place to record the program. It's going to be a real help as we try to continue on. One of my listeners wrote and said, you need to help people become more aware of shortwave. If you're somebody like my age, or if you're a ham operator, you kind of understand the value of HF radio. And so what he was suggesting to me was maybe I should consider possibly, giving away a few shortwave radios. And he pointed out one that I'm going to take a look at. It's very inexpensive. And as much as I don't like to make some of the tech tyrants and business tyrants more wealthy, sometimes you just have to do what you got to do. And this one might be a fascinating unit. I'll let you know more about it after I've had a chance to check it out and see how well it works. He's been getting good results, I believe, in Virginia. Just a very small portable radio. Small, little battery-operated radio. And with a little 3-foot antenna, he said it's, pulling in the station quite nicely in Virginia. And so when I find out more about it, I'm going to let you know. I'm a believer that we're going to need other forms of communications as the years go by, or the months go by, or just the days go by, because of these very strange times in which we live today. There is no doubt we're living in a very unique and different time than we've ever lived in our history. And it has a lot to do with what I talked about in the first segment, this very demonic presence that is just overwhelming our land. And it gives me a number of thoughts of what we as Christians need to be doing in this time. I am convinced, based on my understanding of Scripture and listening to others that are even more knowledgeable than myself, we are on a date with destiny in terms of prophecy in this world. The sins of this world are still standing before God. And our time is running out. How long will God tolerate a nation that mocks him, that pushes him to the side? I can remember Jerry Nadler at some congressional hearing saying, your perception of God or something to the words of this effect have no bearing on this proceeding. In other words, God, you have no bearing on my proceeding in my chamber because I am the God here, is what Mr. Nadler was in essence saying. And this is becoming increasingly the modus operandi of those in many government positions, particularly in blue state governments and our federal government. So-called conservatives on the Supreme Court, like Justice Roberts, have proven themselves not to be true conservatives at all. They're nothing but wolves in sheep's clothing, not to be trusted. Justice is relative. Hunter Biden can do whatever it is he wants to do unabated. He's ignored by the FBI and the Justice Department, but anybody else, different story. Two different standards. We have a double standard now, which is normally the way dictatorships operate, with a dual standard. We have a dual standard in this country. We have an oligarch rulership of wealthy people, connected people, industrial people, big pharmacy companies, military industrialists that are really running the show. And we're allowed to have our crumbs and our time to watch a little bit of TV and maybe take a little vacation. Those they've been curtailed quite a bit because of the pandemic. We've had people like Gretchen, you know who I'm talking about, Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan. They keep locking down. I look at the numbers and I try to make heads or tails. I listen to what the media people say, the talking heads say, on the intellectually, journalistically, morally, spiritually bankrupt news media outlets, and they try to keep the fear alive. Yet the numbers are just not backing it up. At least right now, they're not. Yet they keep saying this wave, that wave, this vaccine, this is going to happen, this variant, this mutant. Wear those face diapers. Leave them on forever. We know they don't do any good. There's not one bit of scientific evidence they've ever done any good. And don't use the bacterial one that, the video coughing or sneezing into a petri dish. Bacteria is a totally different animal than a virus. And you're comparing oranges to kumquats. There is no comparison. Yet people see this stuff and they believe it. You go to some towns. On our travel to Florida, we had to stop a couple of times to get gas. And, the things you do when you travel. Take the dogs out for a little walk. We have 2 little dogs. And depending where you are, you see people walking around with their face gaiters, their face coverings, their bandanas, whatever the case may be. And they keep their distance from other people. And they do it in fear. And sadly, many of these same individuals firmly believe that the face mask is protecting them, even though they should know better by now that they don't. That's what they're being told. They're being told this, or they're believing, or it's been implied. When you see the virtue signaling of President Biden wearing his, face covering, Kamala Harris with her black face covering on, Nancy Pelosi with her color-coordinated face coverings. Yeah, they're not surgical masks. They're cloth that matches her clothing. Custom made, I'm sure. Telling you that you must wear one or you're going to die. You must wear the face covering. It's humiliation. It's psychological warfare, in my opinion. It truly is. I have known people that have come down over the past year with COVID-19. One had a moderately rough ride for a few days, but recuperated fully without any intervention of any kind, nothing. There were none of the medicines given to this individual. That person lived in a state where that kind of stuff was never allowed. It's going to be either you go to the hospital to get a ventilator and die, or you stay home and hope you ride through it. Yet doctor after doctor after doctor comes out and says, we have workable cures that are effective. Of course, Facebook will say that's false information. Twitter says that's false information. These people at Twitter and Facebook, they are not doctors. They're paid lobbyists telling you what you're supposed to know about medicine. Every time you post something that has anything to do with a vaccine, they immediately put this thing up. Vaccines are safe and effective. Click here to find out more on how to get your little jab. Well, I'm not getting that little jab. I have no intention of getting it, even if it means I can't fly an airliner anymore. I know it could restrict my movements. I don't trust the vaccine, not because of who was in the White House at the time it was invented. It has nothing to do with it. I don't trust the inventors. Their track records are dismal. And we have no long-term study. Look, the idea of a messenger RNA treatment, it's not really a vaccine by the true definition, is something that has been worked on for years, but not very successfully. From what I've been reading, a vaccine for a coronavirus has never been successfully deployed yet, in spite of all the research. And now, suddenly we're using this kind of technology in various so-called concoctions to jab into our arms with no understanding of the long-term effect. And many very reputable doctors, not quacks, not weirdos, not YouTube stars that keep getting knocked off, but these are people that, I've been in medicine a long time. I study, I keep up. And I'm concerned because we don't know what the long-term effect is going to be. What will be the damage? How many people have died shortly after getting the first or second injection? Of course, they're always saying that that's unrelated. They can't be. But if anybody dies in a car wreck, it's COVID. The double standard once again at play. And these are the things that worry me about this vaccine concoction. There are those that have a legitimate fear, a very legitimate fear of what is going to happen. What is going to happen a year or two down the road? Will this protein spike artificial that's being generated by your body create other antibodies that may make it more difficult to come through a variation of a coronavirus? Or may it attack certain parts of your body? There are concerns that some people with certain heart diseases may be better off not taking them because it could turn your body's immune system against your own heart. But see, when somebody dies strangely, mysteriously, after getting an injection, it's totally an unrelated incident. I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. But right now, we probably will know the truth when it's too late to undo it, because I don't know how you unvaccinate yourself from this stuff. And so I don't know what kind of a world we're coming into. Between the political unrest in Turkey, the Middle East, and other parts of the world, between the wokeness factoring going on in the United States, between the woke churches that have walked away from the gospel of Jesus Christ, I think God's hand of protection is dropping soon, if it hasn't already. The Bible teaches this understanding that every farmer and every gardener knows you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. For 50 years, we've been sowing a crop of just horrendous dangers to our country, spiritually, morally, and otherwise. And those bumper crops are coming in. And now we have people in charge in our government who are the epitome of the biblical reprobate mind. They no longer have any rational thought process. They are literally deceived. They can't properly reason anything any longer. In the first segment, I kind of alluded to that. It's the demonic spirit of the age. And as these people give over to a reprobate mind because of the things that they espouse and believe, they're now being seduced by demonic spirits. You can call me a nut if you want, I don't care. But you can't explain some of the things that have occurred in the last 20 years, short of literally evil raising its ugly head. And what do they call it? Oh, it's got to be racism, systemic racism, climate change. They come up with all these things that are supposedly the cause, which are not related. They continually enslave us deeper than we were before. I believe we're coming to a time. Now, as you know, this program goes out as a podcast. And I'm still looking at what platforms I may want to continue on or maybe change to or add or even develop. I've got a few friends that are great Bible teachers. They're not the greatest radio people, but they're very good at what they do to give you a clear understanding in an easy-to-digest format. I need to help them get their message out. We need a lot of people. We don't need a handful of superstars. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to put down anybody over the past 25, 30 years. Great Bible teachers. But we're coming into a time where the big Bible teachers or the big churches or the big groups become an increasingly easy target. And I believe that God is raising up small places all over, all kind of ministries, people that have a calling on their life to do their little part, whether it is to pastor or be the leader of a small fellowship or group, whether it meets in a home or some convenient location. I think God is calling up people to do that particular work, and that time is coming sooner than later. I mean, really, it's coming sooner than later. Shortwave airtime. We're going to need more of it, not just here in the United States, but from places that can target the United States. These are the things that I pray about. These are the things that I don't worry about them. I'm not going to worry about this. There's nothing much I can do except do what God calls me to do. What is God calling you to do? We've done programs on who's going to go work today. It's easy to look at the world and say, we're in trouble. All I can do in my little corner of the world is give you the news and give you the information and steer you to the solution to get you ready for the time we're going to come into. A lot of people look at the Orthodox Easter, which is this Sunday, celebration of the resurrection. I don't know what to say is true or not true, especially when it comes to Turkey and the Russian Federation, United States. Currently, our nation is being led by reprobate minds that are incapable of pure or decent or clean thought. They're illogical. They're dangerous. They're promising the world and to free stuff, promising all kind of things they really can't deliver. And yet, just like in the book 1984, they're cheering and their eyes are open and they're so thrilled the government's going to allow me some freedom. After a year of COVID, you got people in the big cities, they get a little taste of freedom and they're thanking their government for their freedom. Really? The government didn't have the right to take it to begin with. The schools are using COVID-19 like in Los Angeles and some of the bigger cities. Oh, we don't want to open up. We got to have 2-year-olds wear face diapers because they can kill us. Oh, and while we're at it, we got to fix climate change too and other social justice issues before we teach your little rugrats. I got news for you. If you're a parent or grandparent, get your child out of the satanic hold of the reprobate public school system. They are nothing but a fast track to hell. You got to get your kids out of the public schools. And I think for some people, you're going to have to get out of the cities because you're never going to have the votes to take it back. I think, and I'm just talking out loud here for those that listen on a regular basis. I think of these places off the beaten path where people can go, maybe spend a weekend, maybe spend a week, where you could have a small chapel, even a dining room for groups coming in to maybe hold a seminar for a group, maybe a place to bring in some camping stuff, and just get away and turn the world off for a few days and focus on Him who loves you and redeems you. Focus on Him for your strength. I can see these little campgrounds. Nothing big, nothing massive, not some kind of a compound. I don't want that. Just a place where you and maybe your wife and kids could come spend a few days. I envision them everywhere. I'm not going to build them. I mean, I may do one. If God opens a door to do one, I would do it. We need these little places of retreat. We need these sanctuaries to get away from all the demonic rule going on around us, all the silliness, all the wokeness, all the reprobate mindedness that we have in our culture. The Bible says, come out from among them and do not touch the unclean thing. That includes the woke churches that have walked away from the gospel. If you're in one, get out of it. Just get out of it. And if you can't find another one, then you're going to have to find 2 or 3 others and gather in His name. It's getting serious. We can't wait till 2022 to fix it in an election or 2024. We're way beyond that now. We're far beyond it. You know as well as I do that the demonic forces of this age, they'll cheat, they'll lie, they'll steal. They have the control right now. They have the Justice Department. They have enough voices on the Supreme Court. They have many a state house and they have the big cities. We've got to be, as Christians, I'm going to say this, I'm going to be running out of time here in a minute, but we need to, as I think it's Alex Torba that has Gab, G-A-B, Gab social network, we as Christians have got to develop our own economy outside and away from the reprobate mind economy. We have to develop our own education systems that are no longer a part of the propaganda system. We need our own media. We need our own radio. We need our own podcast. We need our own platforms. We can no longer be dependent on those that hate us, that hate Christ and want to silence us. We either stand up and be the church militant, or we just go down as the church wimpy. Guess what? It's up to you where you want to be. As for me and my household, we'll serve the Lord. Listen, thank you for supporting this radio ministry. If you can help us financially as we go into this new month of May, can you believe May is here? If you want to mail a small check to keep radio going, our mailing address, make the check out to Ancient Word Radio. And the mailing address, 21 Berkshire, Berkshire, 21 Berkshire Lane, number 263. We're in Sky Valley, 2 words, Sky Valley, Georgia, zip code 30537. We will see you again on Monday here on Truth to Ponder.
This has been Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman. To find out more, visit our website, truth2ponder.com. That's truth2ponder.com. Truth to Ponder, shining the light of truth in a darkening world.